Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. I'm so glad that the weather has been so kind to us this evening. This is our first BrainFood event of the year, and for some of you that have been coming to some of the events pre-COVID, these are usually intimate, small, informative, and provide intellectual stimulation. That's what they're all about, and tonight will be very stimulating for sure. I want to introduce you, please, to our new CEO, Lisa Ezekiel. Sit down. Thank you. Just a little background on this very passionate, enthusiastic, and vibrant woman, which she is. I've only known her for a few years.
Also my whole life.
Now, two of her greatest passions are the Jewish community. Now, this is something I remember very fondly. Even as a younger woman, you were very passionate about the religion and the culture and the history, etc., etc. And of course, the advancement of women. Now, the background I'm going to give you is just a very brief background of what this young woman has achieved, which in my opinion has been a lot. Her achievements include being the creche coordinator and educational leader of Youngman College for 3 years, 2013 to 2016. And her main achievements there including leading the team to achieve an exceeding result in accreditation assessment, presenting at the Australian Jewish Education Conference, establishing a Jewish networking meeting for ELC coordinators. She was also head of community relations and fundraising for the CSG, the Community Security Group, 2018 up to just before she joined us at the end of March this year, exceeding annual appeal targets for 3 years running, which is a very big deal because it is so much harder now with all the stresses we're going through in life to achieve that. I think it's qualifiable, Lisa. Now, she was also a member of the Victorian Jewish Community COVID Task Force. Now, with her skills in stakeholder engagement, staff management and development, fundraising and donor management, program development, event coordinating, strategic planning, public speaking, compliance, workplace culture, partnership development, with all these skills, Lisa will take the organisation to uncharted territories.
I hope so. A lot of pressure now.
I'm making it very difficult for you.
On to Shaun.
No, this is on to Shaun.
Okay, great. Excellent. Thank you.
Now to our guest speaker, Mr. Shaun Resnik. Please sit down, Shaun. Come sit down. Just a little while ago, how old is he now? A couple of months?
10 weeks old.
10 weeks, I was close. Shaun, a Melbourne-based naturopath, welcomed his baby boy, Eli Michael. This was an extraordinary special experience as Shaun was the first single man in Victoria to receive approval to have a child via surrogacy. His single status did not deter him from pursuing his dream of becoming a parent. Shaun, in conversation now with Lisa, will talk about his journey to parenthood, filled with setbacks, arduous ups and downs, not to mention Australia's strict surrogacy laws. Lisa?
Thanks, Betty. Thank you for that acknowledgement of country. I would also like to acknowledge the men and women in this room who have been on their own challenging journeys to become parents, especially those that may not have achieved that dream yet. I acknowledge the bravery that it took here to come here tonight, so thank you to those of you. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest for our first BrainFood event, Shaun Resnik. Over the last 6 months, Shaun has become the face of fathers longing to be parents. He has appeared on Sunrise and 7 News and 10 News. He was interviewed for Mamma Mia and Kid Spot, and tonight he is our esteemed guest. So a little bit about Shaun. Shaun has always dreamed of being a father. He longed to have a partner to share this journey with, knowing that it may not be straightforward. As Shaun crept closer to 40, the yearning grew stronger. After a string of unsuccessful dates, which Shaun will enlighten us about, and no closer to meeting Mr. Right, Shaun took matters into his own hands. He decided in 2018 to join the surrogacy program, and the rest we will just open and talk about tonight. So thank you. A very special welcome to Shaun's partner Shaun, who is just here as well. So thank you, and especially to Shaun's parents for babysitting baby Eli tonight. Thank you. Okay, let's dive in. You ready?
Right, absolutely. Can I make a quick distinction? So first single Victorian to do a local surrogacy journey within Australia. So there are others who've potentially gone and done it overseas, but my option was to do it in Australia. So that's just a distinction.
Thank you, and we'll talk about that as well.
Can I just ask you, does the dog wandering around worry anyone? Sorry, anybody, sorry.
Makes Michelle happy.
It's
Okay.
he spotted a shadow.
Okay. So, Shaun, let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Let's hear about those early days when you started to get those feelings that I'm sure a lot of the people in this room have gotten. You wanted to be a parent, but you weren't sure how to start. How did you begin the process?
I'll go back even further. So growing up in South Africa in a conservative Jewish family, I knew from very young that I was gay, and I'm 44 years old. So back in those days, it wasn't the done thing, and there was a lot of anxiety and fear that came from being a gay guy. And because I didn't want to let my parents down, I didn't want to embarrass them. I was very ashamed. And from when I immigrated to Australia at the age of 22, I arrived here, and I had every intention of, spreading my wings and seeing, how I go. And I wanted to come out of the closet, and it took me 2 more years to finally gain the courage to do so. And when I told Mum and Dad that I was gay, even though it took them 2 years to, let's just say they weren't happy. Mum was pretty devastated. Dad was very sad that I'd gone through all of this on my own. Mum, I like to use humour, by the way. Mum's comment was, "But you've got no symptoms." They were just not educated in that way. Mum had an auntie who lived with a lady of 40 years, their friendship, right? And she still didn't think that they were lesbians. So neither of them had met the right men. They were very fussy.
They were roommates.
Yeah, they were roommates. So that's the kind of family that I grew up in, right? So one of the things that happened is Mum and Dad were just like, we're just sorry you're not going to have a family. We're sorry you're not going to have kids. And I was sorry that I was potentially not going to have kids. But I remember saying to them, I will make sure that I have a family one day. I just didn't know how. Back in those days, we're going back over 20 years ago, surrogacy wasn't a thing. And I felt sad because I also thought, I was going to miss out on the opportunity. I have a very close relationship to my parents and my brother. Mum and Dad, by the way, were all cool with it within a couple of years. They were fine. I gave Mum an ultimatum, Jewish guilt. I just said, you've got 1 more week to get over this. I'm not speaking to you ever again. And that's when she came around. She was fine. So I was saddened by the whole experience as well. Mum and Dad and myself, my brother, we used to get on so well in South Africa. Dad and I used to go on these beautiful walks. We'd walk the dogs, and we had this really beautiful connection. And I think I always yearned to have that kind of relationship with a future child or children. When I came out of the closet, even though I got into the party scene and all that sort of stuff, actually wasn't me. I didn't really resonate with every single Saturday night going out clubbing, partying, pubs, and and I don't begrudge anyone for that scene. I think it's wonderful if you enjoy the party scene, go for it. But I aspired to be a parent. I aspired to have families. So that's where my journey started way back then.
That's right. So with all of that in mind, how did you then know where to start with this surrogacy journey?
I didn't. So I was in a relationship from the age of 27 up till about 32. He didn't want to have kids, got out of that relationship. Actually did speak to someone at the age of about 32 who had done surrogacy overseas. He had remortgaged, he had sold his house. It was like over $250,000 back in those days. It was ridiculous. And I was just starting out in my career. There's no ways I could afford that. But it gave me hope to think that this did exist. Like, here's a guy who's actually, you know, become a dad. So I, for the first time, had this like inkling of there is hope. Okay, I didn't know how I was going to do it. Anyway, in my early 30s to mid 30s, I was in relationships with various guys, and as lovely as they were, none of them wanted to have kids. And I was scared to do this on my own. I'd never in that moment thought I'm going to become a single dad. I don't think anyone really starts off thinking, I'm going to raise a kid by myself, you know? So in my early 30s, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm just going to bite the bullet and go and get a sperm test. And it's going to sound ridiculous, but in a weird way, I hoped I was infertile. I know that sounds a bit strange, but I knew it was going to be a really hard journey to become a parent through surrogacy. And I thought, well, if I end up doing this test and I'm, you know, for better words, shooting blanks, then at least I know that I can just put it aside and say it was just not meant to be. And lo and behold, that wasn't the case. Apparently I could, yeah. Anyway, we won't so the results came back great, everything was good in that department, and I still thought, no, I'm going to wait until I do meet Mr. Right. Up until about the age of about 38, when it was starting to get like, well, if I don't get cracking with this soon, it may never ever happen. And I don't want to, you know, we don't have a biological clock ticking, you know, we really don't. I mean, men, as you can tell, have, you know, gone on to have kids well into their 50s, 60s and older. But I had like this moral obligation to my future children that I didn't want to be too old, personally, because I wanted to still be able to be young enough to be able to have a long, fulfilling life with them. I didn't want to leave them at a very young age. So I opted to go onto something called the Australian Surrogacy Community. I wasn't ready, which is, by the way, a small group, a closed group. There's over 1,000 people on it. There's intending parents.
On Facebook.
On Facebook, closed group. In Australia, you can't actually advertise to do surrogacy. It's illegal in Victoria. So every state has its own set of rules. So I thought to myself, okay, so here I am, I'm single. I like to think outside the square. Why don't I get into a group where there are actively gay guys, girls, straight people, whomever, people with fertility issues, in a group? Why don't I just go on and introduce myself and say, hey, one day I want to be a dad. I want to do it as a partner though. Who here's got a nice single man that they can introduce me to, right? And that post just went nuts. They went nuts. They'd never had somebody like enter the group with that kind of request, right? Anyway, within about 2 weeks, a guy stepped forward and he said, you know, I'm single, I'm from Sydney, and I want kids, and we weren't actually a match. But everyone went, oh, congratulations, it's meant to be. 2 gay men, obviously you should have kids together. And I actually had to exit the group, like almost crawl out of the group, right? Because I was like, I didn't want to say, well, in front of everyone, well, actually, no, we're not a match at all. This hasn't worked out. Keep trying, everyone. Keep finding someone. So that was my intro into the group. And it's only just before my 40th birthday where I actually took myself off to Africa on a safari. I'd reached a point where I had this really cool career. I'm a naturopath hypnotherapist. I'd brought the family home without having the family. I had this great career, but I didn't have the partner and I didn't have the kid or kids. So when I hit 40, I wasn't happy to turn 40. I felt like I hadn't hit that milestone. I wasn't really proud to go, welcome to my 40th, and here's my beautiful partner, and here are my kids. And I don't know, I put a lot of pressure on myself, you know, and I think a lot of us in our community do put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do certain things. So anyway, I was in Africa, and I did a safari, and I made a decision on that trip that I was going to pursue surrogacy as a single man, and I was done waiting. Like, I thought, I can't put this off anymore, and that's how the journey sort of ensued.
Amazing, really. I mean, to think how much you took it upon yourself, and really, you know, the theme of International Women's Day this year was break the bias. And really, that's what Shaun did. He took it into his own hands and decided that he would write his own future and didn't need to follow what everyone else has done. So, with everything that was thrown at you in the process, what was your first win that made you confident that you were doing the right thing?
I think, you know, the journey in Australia to do surrogacy is not an easy journey. journey. It is so hard. It's altruistic. So you can't pay someone to give you eggs. You can't pay someone to carry a baby for you. It's all completely legal. It's jail served time, okay? So you really are relying on the goodness of the hearts of people who, you know, to help you out. I'd expired all the, you know, I'd asked all women that I knew if, you know, indirectly, like, would you carry a baby for me? You're lovely, do you want to give me some eggs? It's amazing how many people don't like that question. It gets a bit awkward, right? But I thought, well, you know what, if you don't ask, you don't get. So, you know. So anyway, I think the biggest win for me was the very first egg donor that I got was somebody who offered to give me eggs. And even though we weren't successful in the sense that we only created 2 embryos, and they weren't high quality embryos, and I'll probably get into that a bit later, but it was just the fact that she said yes. That was my first win, and the fact that her husband, we're actually very close friends, we are now. Her husband and her had just gotten married, and they hadn't even had kids of their own. And they were so inspired by me being a man who wanted to be a dad, who hadn't found his life partner, that they actually offered he said to his wife, do you want to give Shaun eggs? And she was like, I was going to ask you, but I was too scared. Just do it. And we did. And I think it was those counselling sessions and just going there with them and sitting in the counselling, that felt like an absolute win because I finally felt like I had a team around me. Yes, that was fabulous. That was amazing.
And so, while that was a win, it didn't really end up being a win for you. So how did the process carry on? Because obviously, I mean, a lot of people in this room, I'm sure, have been through their own journeys to become parents.
Yeah.
And it's fair to say that it can become all-consuming. Pregnancy tests, the ovulation tests, the periods and no periods, getting a period, crying, it can be a long process. And then, you know, when that's not working, to then have to move on to things like IVF, surrogacy, or adoption. So how did you manage all of that within yourself and not let it consume you, or did you let it consume you? Tell us.
Okay, so I have to take you back to a couple steps. So I hit the ground running at the age of 40 and I'm now back in the group and I'm like, okay, so here are all these really attractive couples who want to, you know, gay couples, lesbian couples, any denomination. And don't forget, there are also heterosexual couples in this group. There are women who've gone through ovarian cancer or menopause early in their lives who need someone to carry for them. So here I am, Mr. Single Me, okay, 40 years old. And I thought, how am I going to stand out in front of this group? There are, for every 100 people looking for a surrogate in Australia, there is only 1 surrogate out there. So your chances are like that big, right? So I'm thinking, okay, everyone seems to do a blurb of themselves, maybe a paragraph that long, okay, with their photo of their gorgeous dog, right? and it's cute, right? But everyone's doing the same thing. So I thought to myself, no one has done a video. Like, no one's actually just really become super vulnerable and done a video. So I decided, with my little cute dog, everyone loves a cute noodle, right? So I did a video, a 5-minute video of myself, and I just said, hey, I'm that dude who wanted to meet someone, remember me? Yeah, well, it hasn't happened, I'm 40, and you know, I'm balder now, and I'm this, that, and that. And I used a bit of humour, self-deprecating humour, and I just said, I'd love to be a dad. Now I'm actually doing it on my own. I'm finally at the point where I'm decided, done, okay? And it was amazing, that response from that video was lovely. So I was quite fortunate. Bless you. I was quite fortunate in that it sometimes takes anywhere between 2 to 5 years for someone to actually find a surrogate. Within about 3-4 days, I was already attracting some traction from women who are coming forward. And with all due respect to the surrogacy community, there are definitely women in it who are doing it for the right reasons, and there are definitely some people who are not doing it for the right reasons. Okay, you think about it. Somebody's altruistically going to carry a baby for you. The people who are doing it for the right reasons just have the biggest heart. Okay, the people who perhaps shouldn't be offering are people who probably just lacking attention or really wanting to save someone, but they haven't thought about it. And unfortunately, I seem to attract 2 people initially who really should not have even offered me to do the surrogacy. So, and they were like we call it surrogating. So now, not only have I been unlucky in dating gay men, now I'm dating women. And the weirdest thing is, like, some of them are married, right? So it's just this bizarre experience. So the first journey lasted about 4 or 5 months, and she fell in love with somebody else, and so she reneged, she ghosted me essentially, and I had to work out what was going on, and I was devastated because I'm an open guy. I've been telling friends, family, I'm excited. We created those 2 embryos. The journey had started, and so when that ended, I was devastated. So I actually took myself off to America for a 3-week holiday and hiked about 300 kilometers. Like, I came back fitter than I've ever been. Oh, my butt was great. Grand Canyon down in one day, and it was just great. And I just needed to recalibrate and just think, okay, let's move forward. A second surrogate came along, and everything was going really well. She was a lady who lives in Perth, and I was ecstatic. Actually, that's when the embryos needed to be created, because we were going to start a counselling process. Now, anyone who knows egg collections are really difficult. It's painful. My first egg donor did not have a good experience, and newly married, she didn't almost end. The marriage was straining with her ups and downs during that time. We got less eggs than we'd hoped. We were under the expectation from what we're told from the scans, we're going to get heaps of eggs. So we're excited, right? It's a roller coaster, we're up there. Then we only get 10 eggs, which actually isn't a lot. And there's statistically a 25% success rate. So if you get 10 eggs, you're most likely going to get 2 embryos. We got 2 embryos, they weren't high quality embryos. And roughly around that time, my second surrogate decided that she wasn't in. She just decided it's all too hard. Her husband rang me up and said, Shaun, good luck to you. We've decided we're opting out. And again, I was just left gutted, devastated. It's a small surrogacy community, right? So as soon as other surrogates hear that you're taken, they all lose interest in you. And now it's like, this is the second time this is happening. So I was really upset about it. So yet again, I had to start from scratch. I had to go back to the community and ask, and say, this is what's happened. Who would like to help me on this journey? And at the time, there was a girl, Bree. Now, Bree is Eli's biological mother. She loved the video, and she said to me, Shaun, without even knowing each other, I think it was within a day, she offered to be my egg donor. And again, counselling, legal, psychological evaluations, it's really difficult over here. And in many ways it should be difficult, because this is a big decision. You have to be psychologically stable in order to do something like this. So we were fortunate enough to get 23 eggs this time around, and of those 23 eggs, we got 8 healthy embryos, which was wonderful. So that was a real win. Okay, so then I attract a third surrogate. This is fabulous, all right? She lives in Melbourne, it's all really good, everything's going really well. Go through the psychological evaluation, the counselling, the legals. I'm obviously paying for all of this. And right at the very end, we get to something called the PRP, the Patient Review Panel, okay? And the Patient Review Panel is a panel of experts. And so there's a medical doctor, there's a criminologist, there's a psychologist, a psychiatrist, there's whomever you can think of who's an ologist is there. And they're literally there to decide whether you can proceed to go and do the actual transfer. So they want to know everything about your life. They need to know about your financials, they want to know about everything. And I find out just weeks before that I'm the first single Victorian male to be doing this. And I was shitting myself because I was told they're going to scrutinise me. They said this has never been done before in Victoria. Every state's got their own set of rules and regulations, and Victoria, we happen to be exceptionally strict over here. And I was super, super nervous. Anyway, so we get to that point, and without giving too much information, there was something within their past that actually precluded us, and we didn't make it. 2 hours of being grilled, and we weren't successful. So one of the things you asked was, how did I overcome adversity and stuff? I became obsessed. I was completely obsessed. I'm running a busy practice. I'm trying to be, everything that I need to be for everyone, and I'm hiding the sadness, right? And I won't forget, there was one particular night that I had 3 dates with this really lovely guy. And I was really very smitten with this guy. And I just found out that the embryos that week hadn't worked out. My second surrogate had pulled out. And then I got this text from him this long saying, hey, listen, I don't want to be a dad. If I'm really upfront with you, I just don't think we're going to be a match. And I just, that those times in life, you just feel like nothing is working out for you, right? So I love exercise, and one of the ways I tend to get over stuff is I go hiking or I gym and that sort of thing. So I was insomniac that particular night. It was really sad. I went off to the gym at 4 a.m, 24-hour gym, and I just decided to do bench press, which I normally do, and I loaded up the weights, and I'm just pushing out as many weights as I possibly can, and then I hear a snap. Yeah. Yeah. And without getting too graphic, what I essentially did was, there is your pec muscle, which attaches to your humerus, which is your muscle, your bone over here. I snapped it right off the bone. So I've got a surrogacy scar that's about 10 centimeters long, where I literally had to go for surgery to open this up and to actually reattach it and pin it back into my arm. So I was not in a good space at all. So not only was I struggling in all areas of my life, but I couldn't move my arm for 3 months. So it was rough. So IVF is difficult for all of those. Anyone who's been through this themselves, my heart goes out to all of you. When you're waiting for those embryos they get created, there's a 5-day window, and every second day, anyone who knows this, you create the embryos, but there is a 25% success rate, and every day they kind of let you know how many have died off. So it is so stressful. Anyway, so am I going ahead with your questions? Okay, so if I go right back to the beginning of the journey, there was a meet-up in Melbourne where there was a brunch for intending parents and surrogates to be there. And I'd gone off on my own. And there was a woman there who was pregnant at the time, and we just made this connection. And her name's Carla. And Carla was pregnant with a gay couple's daughter. So she was already pregnant. And she came up to me, and she could see us a little bit out of my depth. I'd arrived at this function all on my own. There's all these amazing couples, and everyone's, together. And here is little old me. And Carla comes up to me, and she befriends me. And we had this gorgeous connection, and there was never ever an intention with her to be a surrogate of mine, but we just maintained this awesome friendship. And for all the ups and downs that I went through, Carla was my confidant. She had donated eggs before. She was the admin of the Egg Donor Australia Facebook group, and she has got a heart of gold. She's actually one of the nicest human beings I know. She's donated eggs to about 7 families. She has carried for a gay couple. She's carried 2 kids for them. She's got 3 girls of her own. She's a school teacher and a businesswoman. Her life is full. And when Carla found out that the PRP had not gone through and we'd failed it, she said to me, Shaunie, everything's going to be okay. And I said, how? How is everything going to be okay? I'm losing momentum here, And she goes, no, you're going to be all right because I'm carrying the baby for you. And it was just one of the most moments I've ever experienced. She's had 5 kids, essentially. Wow. She's 42 years of age, and she's literally offered to carry my baby for me. So that was one of the best moments ever.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you even replace them? And you can't really.
You can't. Well, you can't actually.
Yeah. Which brings me to my next question. Perfect. So, as a women's organisation, it would be remiss of me to not bring up the complexities that can come with surrogacy. particularly overseas surrogacy and the exploitation of women in third world countries. I obviously was doing a lot of research reading up for this interview, and one of the stories that I came across in India was a woman that had given birth to 11 children via surrogate. Because obviously over there you can get paid. I'm sure it was not nearly as much as it should have been, but there is a lot of controversy around surrogacy, and I know that you'd mentioned that going overseas was not an option for you, which I really respect. But even now in some countries like Sweden, altruistic surrogacy is illegal.
Yes, you're allowed.
So how did you grapple with that from your own? You're obviously a very moral person from what I've got to know you over the last few weeks, and I would like to know how you grappled with all of that.
I always believe in like win-win situations, and I've always thought, like, to be quite frank, I'm being really open and vulnerable. I've always had an issue myself of just being a single dad to a child and not having that child have a mum. Like, I myself thought there's something that doesn't feel right about that. I really want to be a dad, but there's something quite selfish even within myself for even wanting to pursue this journey, you know. And but then I thought, how do I get around that? And I thought, well, if I stay within Australia, then I can create a relationship with the birth mother and the egg donor, and this child essentially will have a village around it, you know, because then they'll never have to say to someone, I don't have a mum, because essentially now I am in a relationship. This child, you know, Eli's got two dads, he's got a birth mother, and he's got his biological mother, and Bree, the egg donor, is quite comfortable with him. She's got 2 kids of her own, to have him call her his mum, if and when if he chooses to, okay? And we'll get there when we get there eventually, but that's the options. I don't want to go overseas personally, and I don't begrudge anyone. So these are my own feelings, and I think anyone who goes overseas, wonderful, do it. But for me personally, I don't want to go to some third world country because I do believe that these women are exploited. Like, they're not looked after. In the Ukraine, from what I understand, like, there are hostels and it's not nice. And I just thought it didn't feel right for me. And you can go to the States and do it. The journey in the States is not cheap. I don't know if anyone knows how much surrogacy, anyone want to guess how much surrogacy costs overseas? Yeah, $250,000+. Yeah, and so it's super expensive. And then yet again, you've got an overseas surrogate that you can connect with online, but the kid's never really going to see that person, right? So I believe in Australia, if it was made easier, and that's why I'm being so vocal about it too, and there were more women who actually wanted to do it, perhaps we could have more Australian-made babies, and there would be more of this family community happening. Women are not exploited in Australia for this reason. There are so many women in the community who love being pregnant. So would you believe Carla actually loves being pregnant? When she's pregnant, her hair's the best, it's amazing. Her boobs are the best. She kept telling me, Shaun, boobs. Great. No, she feels great. So hormonally, it just suits her. And there are other women who feel the same way. And even I was blown away, even at the birth. 2 hours, and that kid just, he popped out so fast.
She didn't feel that way.
Yeah, no, but in essence, even the birthing of Eli, obviously it's a big deal, but Carla births really easily compared to a lot of women. So I think if we really start having these conversations, there'll be other women out there who would potentially be surrogates. And how old do you think the oldest you can be is in Australia? What's the age limit? What do you reckon it is?
It's about 50 actually.
Yeah, it's 52, I think it is. 52 years of age, yeah, absolutely. So egg donorship is round about, ideally, if you want to have a successful journey in surrogacy, egg donors, the age is generally 20s till like mid-30s. And even though I appreciate there are plenty of women who want to have their own children, biological children, who will attempt IVF in their 40s and above, the percentages are not fantastic. So if you're already going on a journey, where you've got to do psychological evaluations, counselling, legals, paying all this money, you really want to find somebody who's younger, so you get more eggs and a higher percentage chance of success. So, yeah, so I think it's a really, the whole story around women and surrogacy is a huge topic. Since I've gone public on this, I have been privy to some comments online, because this went viral, this story, and there have been amazing commentary online about all the comments around, congratulations, we're inspired, this is amazing, single people, like, wow. And then there are some real hardcore people who've come out, and some of their comments have been really, I mean, they've been hurtful, you know, and you know, you've exploited this woman, and how could you do this? You're selfish, and you've paid. We haven't paid, but you know, there is an exchange of love. That's, if somebody said to me, "Is this transactional?" and I said, "Yeah, emotionally, it's transactional. There's love going both ways. It's quite incredible." So. Yeah, so there's some very opinionated people out there, and they have every right to feel what they feel. But I do have to disagree. In Australia, there's no exploitation at all.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
So you brought up very briefly the day that Eli was born. So
Yeah.
let's fast forward to that now that we've heard how you got there, and we are very grateful for you and for Eli that you did.
Yeah.
So 9 months later, out he pops apparently. I'll be
Carla's sitting here.
I'll be
She'd
sure
probably
to
be
ask
like,
Carla.
she'd probably be like, hang on.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that first day and the weeks following, because you and I, we shared a little bit about those moments that you think you're going to feel when you have a baby, right?
Yeah.
Gabby gets it. You expect a lot, and something that we do at National Council is filling that gap, right, with caring mums, is ensuring that in those moments of vulnerability, in those moments where your life is drastically changing, where you're getting a shift, a dynamic change within your relationship. Tell me a little bit about that, those first few moments when you had Eli and when you held him, and the weeks following.
I'll definitely give you insights into that, and if I may just quickly rewind just a little bit to give you, so you'll understand the story, how the story goes. So Carla's 4 or 5 months pregnant, and so I'm essentially single, and Shaun over there, who's sitting, wave, Shawnee. Shawnee and I, just because he was there on the day, so you have to understand how he fits into the whole picture. So Shawnee and I have been friends for 8 years, and we were just buddies, and ironically both at the time dating guys with the same, we were both dating Chris's, the two Shauns. Weird synchronicity over there. Anyway, so we were buddies. Halfway through my journey, I found out that Shaun wanted to be a dad as well. He was intrigued by surrogacy, he took a real interest. And we dated briefly, but I think when you're surro dating, it felt like I was cheating on my surrogate. It's very weird. It's very weird. So we didn't last more than a few months or so, but we remained really close friends. When Carla was about 5 months pregnant or so, Shaun and I reconnected, and I feel like I was in the right space at the time, and we've been together ever since. Aww. So, which is lovely, and he is an amazing dad. So he's incredible. So anyway, on the day of Eli's birth, we had no expectation that he was actually going to be born on that day. Carla had gone in to Box Hill Clinic just for a little checkup. We were there for every other checkup. On this day, Carla said she just wanted to quickly go in, have a chat to the midwife. She was starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable. She said, "Shaun, you don't have to come in. It's just going to be a quick chat." So my day was loaded up with clients. I'm finishing up on a consult, and there's a few missed calls, and then there's this text, and it says, "Papa, you better get yourself to the hospital." She goes, "I'm being induced today. We're waiting for you guys to get here." So I've just screamed out to Shaun, "Oh my God, we're gonna be dads! Come, let's go, go to the hospital." And we pre-packed everything, But we hadn't thought about the puppies, we've got 2 dogs, we hadn't thought about like stuff, you know, like, so we were rushing around like 2 headless chooks up and down the house, throwing stuff into the car and so...
starting your parenting?
Oh no, we are really like, yeah. So we're in the car and I'm sort of like, you know, hands-free, speaking to clients. I can't see you later, I'm having a baby, Shaun's messaging his dad and I'm messaging my folks and we're on our way. And we get to the hospital and Carla has met us there and obviously she's there and she's ready to pop. And so they did something called a, where they go in and they just do a...
stretch and sweep?
Stretch and sweep. Yes. Exactly. The words eluded me. Thank you very much. And we were asked to just go and hang outside for a little bit. And within a couple of hours, Carla had started to go into labour. And then we came in. Carla had a good friend who was going to be a support. Her mum was originally going to be her support person. And her mum was on holiday, so she asked a close friend to come in. And the wonderful thing about all of this is, because we had pre-planned it, Carla had given me permission to definitely, it's a public hospital, Box Hill Clinic, so amazing hospital. And if I wanted to, I could potentially deliver Eli. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm delivering this child. So I was there and Shaun was there and taking photos and whatnot. And within about 2 hours, Carla started crowning. And yeah, it was the most exquisite moment. The moment this little boy like slipped out and screamed so loudly. It was such a joyful moment up until I nearly dropped him. Father failure. It's so slippery. And it was this outstanding moment. I feel like even more outstanding than his actual birth was the moment I got to cut the umbilical cord. I remember just thinking, like, the moment I cut that cord, it was like, the chapter had ended, you know, all that stuff that had gone through, it's ended, and this was the start of a brand new chapter, so it was amazing. And we were completely overwhelmed from that point onwards. So in Australia, through surrogacy, the birth mother doesn't go home with bubs, so she got her own suite, we got a room next to hers. Carla opted to just do colostrum, so she had express colostrum beforehand. We had about 2 days worth of colostrum, and that's all we gave to Eli from Carla, and then it just straight on to formula. Yeah, and we were all on our own.
So tell me a little bit about that. You shared with me when we got up the expectation of how you thought you'd feel, and then how you actually felt.
So I think I was really naive going into this. I think we all are to a degree, but I give myself a hard time sometimes. I don't know, I just expected it to just be like joy and, you know. I really thought, like, I knew that every 2-3 hours you have to look after the bubs. And I thought maybe like a window where you are looking after this, like a 30-minute window, and then you get a whole 2-3 hours to just do other stuff. I really thought that. I really did think that. I had no idea of how long those feeds take. And nappy blowouts and bombs and all that sort of stuff. So, as I was saying to you when we chatted about it, I think for the first few weeks, I felt love, but I was so overwhelmed, and I actually started feeling a little bit of guilt as well. We were so tired. We were so tired, and we didn't know what we were doing. You know, I mean, you know, Shaun and I even had this conversation. The first day or two, even I wouldn't let Shaun do anything on it, like even changing a nappy, unless I was right there. And Shaun was like, do you not trust me? And I said, I don't trust us, babe. I don't even trust me. I'm making sure that both of us, 2 sets of eyes and hands, at least we'll get it right, possibly. And then I feel like after I think it was that first when he started smiling at us, it was finally like, oh my God, now
There's
now
a
my
reason.
heart's melting. I think nature's so clever. Like just when you're feeling so overwhelmed and you almost can't do it, then boom, they do something that makes you like heart melt, right?
It's actually, I completely agree with you. There's something
Yeah.
amazing about the development of a baby, right? That you're in the trenches
Yeah.
and you're exhausted and you're covered in vomit and you're trying to deal with everything, and then your baby smiles at you.
Yeah.
It's
It's
like, that's it.
That's
That's
it.
the one.
but
And
some,
then the next, or not, but that can also.
yeah, and it doesn't always happen like that. And
Exactly.
look, one thing where I must say we are at such an advantage though is when we get that bubs, we're not recovering from giving birth. We're not recovering from all the hormonal changes. So, by all due respect to every woman that's out there, like not like wow us, like wow you. But one thing we don't get, and I don't know whether it's really, I didn't think about it beforehand, is that we don't get the oxytocin high either. And we don't get all those like lovey-dovey kind of hormones floating around. So I felt like the first few weeks, it was like we're doing what we're obligated to do. We did love him, but we didn't really know him, and we didn't have the hormones that were surging through us. So it almost felt a bit mechanical for the first few weeks. And to be quite frank, there's a lot of pressure on us. I mean, you know, two blokes. You know, to be honest, I mean, I remember Mum a few times, like, you know, Shaun would hand over bubs to me and, oh, watch his head! And, oh, it's too cold in here, it's too hot.
That's not just for men.
I know.
That's every Jewish
You're going for a walk now with him, it's too cold. It's not even cold. So yes, I felt like there's a lot of pressure on us to like keep him alive.
Yeah, we felt that too.
Yeah, everybody the same parent and
Everyone.
you're like,
Yeah.
they're alive!
Yes.
Yeah, didn't kill anyone. So that's good, I'm glad. So now, where a lot of us are mothers and parents in this room, life certainly changes drastically. So tell me about your joy now. Tell me.
The joy was today, many occasions like today, where we're in my lunch break, because I work from home. Shaun's got 8 months paternity leave, which is insane. So it's fabulous. And I will say this, even though I was going to do this journey on my own, I'm so grateful I'm not. I would have had to get an au pair, I would have had to get a nanny, I would have had to do all those sort of things, but I don't think it would be anywhere near as joyful as doing it with someone you love, you know? And
how old is Eli now?
Eli's 10 and a bit weeks. Yes, on Tuesday he was 10 weeks. So we're walking in the park today, and we've got the pram. Eli's there, and he's got these beautiful blue eyes, and he's looking up, and he's got blonde, I used to have blonde hair. and he's looking up at us, and he's happy, and we're a family, and we've got the 2 dogs, and we're walking, and we're talking about a future holiday, and when we can eventually do certain things, and yeah, those are the moments, and when the joy is when, you know, he stops crying as you put the bottle in his mouth. That's pure joy. The joy is when I do a nappy change and it's just a wee. And Shaun gets the food. That's happened a lot. The joy is when we're alternating, you know, who has to get up to feed him, and I'm not doing the 3 a.m. one. That's quite joyful. So yeah, those are the moments. Those cute little moments are joyful.
Okay, so you could have gone through this process privately, like other people probably have done around the world, and you chose not to, which really, the vulnerability and the way that you've put yourself in front of people, and it's not just being the first male, you're also gay, which 100% has impacted from what I've read on some of the comments. You get comments about not only Shaun being a male and needing a mother and those sorts of comments, but then being a gay man, how on earth could a gay man raise a baby? So tell us why you chose to go so public with this journey. Well, you sort of didn't choose.
So here's the deal. Does anyone know Lynn Burmeister? She's a fertility specialist, right?
Lots of people here.
So I got a message from the clinic saying, hey, so there's going to be a story out on IVF. By the way, you know how you're the first single male in Victoria to do this in Australia. Would you mind if you mention your name in the article and they might interview you for the article? So I actually said to my folks, I said, you know what, I'm going to say yes to that, why not? I'm proud of where I've come and what I've done. And so I said, so I got interviewed by the Age. And I said, I remember saying to my parents, I said, we'll probably be on page 7 and I'll be maybe 3 lines, front page of the newspaper, all on my story, and then got 3 lines. And it's all just on the story, right? It was amazing. It was oh my goodness. So now it's blown out of control. Now, so I wake up this happened on Sunday night, 6 o'clock Monday morning. I wake up and Channel 7, Channel 10, I'm getting messages Shaun, can you be on Sunrise? Can you do this? Can you do that? We want you on the news. We want you Mamma Mia. It's hey, Mamma Mia. So all of a sudden, it's I'm thrust into the public light about this. And I'm actually glad it happened because the feedback from other people who have struggled to become parents or I like to think that this is a metaphor for other areas of life. This isn't just about having a child or just, overcoming adversity or whatever it is. This is about any life journey where people have felt stuck and they just haven't known what to do. It's about persistence. It's about trying, thinking outside the square. And so the messages that have been coming through are just absolutely beautiful. And I'm actually focusing on all the overwhelmingly positive ones, but I'm a human being. When they interviewed, when that article came out, and we've still 4 months to go before the Bubs was born, I did get quite affected by some of the negative commentary. It reminded me of when I was in the closet, and I used to read comments online on YouTube and stuff. Really homophobic comments, right? Remember when you see anti-Semitic comments and it kind of really hits you, right? And then there's a point as a gay man where I'd read those comments and I just didn't care anymore. I thought, whatever, everyone's entitled to their opinion. But funny enough, when I read those comments about me online, it didn't feel nice. And now that Eli's born, and some of those comments persist because we've been on Insight, we've been on other programs, we've just filmed on for the feed. So if you watch the feed in a couple of weeks on SBS, we'll be on it. Now that he's born, I actually don't give a crap about what those people say because it's the Bubs here, I'm living my life. You glass houses. I don't think any of us can really throw stones. None of us are living perfect lives, and I feel like we have to kind of just accept that.
Yeah. Well, I think you've really opened up the conversation for women who want to go through this journey, men who want to go on this journey. And it's becoming more and more common for women to be single mums by choice and making that commitment to being a mother, and it is just so great to see it happening for men as well. It really is. So before I open up to questions, I just wanted to finish off by asking, what are the 3 main values you would like to instill in your life?
I want to, there's so many, but I'm an overachiever. I want to say curiosity. Curiosity. I think this life is so full of so many amazing opportunities, and if you remain open-minded and curious, I think this world is so colourful. Passion. I feel like I want him to have a passionate life. I'm actually not concerned what he chooses to do as a vocational career, as long as he's passionate about it. That's the main thing. And I hope the value around humour and laughter prevails in our family, because it's what I was brought up with, and I just think you can get through anything if you can have a really good laugh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
How do we even say thank you? Excellent. We're already on. This is very exciting.
Hi, Shaun.
Hey.
Very quick question. How does it work legally with the parenthood?
Yes.
For instance, whose names are on the birth certificate?
Awesome question.
And if you do stay with a person for the rest of your life, does that person then need to adopt Eli?
Such a good question.
And what happens?
Okay.
What a glass of wine.
We've had this conversation.
I hope it's not the first time.
No.
Everybody.
You need to go to the toilet.
Yeah, it's a great question
No,
because
it's
I'm very interested in what's happening in Israel in that regard, which is in the dark ages still.
Yeah.
But I think that if the gay couple is not married, you can actually adopt or
You'll
something
tell us,
along that
Shaun?
line.
Is that in Israel or in the
Yeah.
Okay.
So from what? Okay. So firstly, one of the big questions people ask is, what happens if a surrogate chooses to keep the baby and you like illegal? Like, what happens then? It never happens. I'm just telling you now. These are women who literally have their own kids. They generally have to have had their own families, and they're fertile. Why would they choose to have somebody else's and then keep it? So it does not happen. So that's a myth. That does not happen in Australia. I had to get my own legal aid lawyer, and I had to get a legal counsel for Carla as well. And there is a very set contract that says that the moment that baby is born, he or she is legally the intending parents. However, I am not on the birth certificate. Carla is on the birth certificate. So we actually need, there needs to be reform around this, okay? So I still,
biological father.
I'm the biological father, but I'm not on the birth certificate. And anything, any medical interventions, anything that needs to be done for baby Eli, even at this point now, because I haven't applied for parentage order yet, we've got 6 months in order to do it, anything that needs to be done is done through Carla's permission. And if Carla was to say no, then it would not be allowed. Okay, so so there's that. So these are we've got some very archaic rules and regulations. Just by the way, every state in Australia has got different rules and regulations. So in Western Australia, only heterosexual couples and single women can do surrogacy. In ACT, gay couples can do surrogacy, but single women can't. In Tasmania, you're only allowed a surrogate issues in Tasmania. So, tiny chances. Good luck if you're in Tasmania. In Victoria, you're not allowed to legally put even on your Facebook page, looking for a surrogate, because it's illegal, so you can't advertise. So that every state has got different rules and legislation. There needs to be unity, and they're making it so hard. So Shaun, getting back to Shawnee. So because Shaun wasn't involved in the counselling, the legals and everything, so it was essentially a single journey, Shaun's actually not able to be on the birth certificate. So even though I would love Shaun to be on the birth certificate, it can't happen. Shaun and I, remember, we're fresh in a relationship. We've known each other for 8 years. We've been very pragmatic. So far, we're flying. We're doing well, right? How are we going? Are we okay? Are we okay? Hands up, okay, good. So, if in 2 years, when in 2 years we are still going strong, then we will absolutely go down the line of adoption. And I've already spoken to the lawyer, and she hasn't intimated otherwise that he can't. So
you still wouldn't be on it though.
no. So here we go. So what's going to happen is before 6 months, if I don't get onto this, so please be onto me about this. Ask me, send me reminders. If I don't get onto this within 4 months, and there's a whole process, so much admin that goes in, lawyers' fees, the whole thing. I have to apply for parentage order, where Carla gets taken off the birth certificate, or a new birth certificate gets issued. So I go onto it solely, Shaun can't, Carla gets taken off. And that's when...
And the egg donor is not...
Now, here's the deal. Egg donor, we have to do the legals as well. In Victoria, this has only just changed. So in the past, when an egg donor gave you eggs, the moment those eggs left her body and those embryos were created, it was solely the intending parents' legal. I could do with them as I wish. If I wish to donate them, if I wish to hold on to them, or have kids or not. Now they've changed the rules, which I kind of like. Now the egg donor has every right over those embryos as well. So if Brie and I were to have a falling out for whatever reason, and she went, I don't want you to have a sibling for Eli, no, she could essentially ask to have those embryos destroyed. So the moment that embryo gets transferred into a surrogate, the egg donor loses all legal rights to that child. So she's not responsible financially, or you're going to answer
I
that.
want to ask you a couple of things. Firstly, does the surrogate want to see or know what's going on with your child?
Yeah.
And would you approve of it or rather keep it separate altogether?
No, I love it. I love it. Carla, as I said, even if she wasn't going to be my surrogate. We've got this really amazing connection, and I want what's best for Eli. What's best for a child? Would it be best that we kept him a secret from his biological mother or his birth mother? Or does it make sense that he has this amazing connection with them? So out of respect to Carla, we caught up with her for every day for a week. Every day for a week, she'd either come to us post-birth, or we'd go over there so she could smell him, hug him. It's good for her hormones as well. She took medication to stop her breast milk coming through. But for her, she needed to see him and feel him as well. We catch up all the time. We're only together on the weekend. Carla and I were messaging each other today. Bree and I keep messaging each other. Unfortunately, Bree's moved on to Port Douglas, where she originally is from, and that sucks, I must admit. So her two little boys, 4 and 2-year-old, are Eli's half brothers.
Somewhere to go and stay.
Hey?
Yeah, exactly.
100%. 100%. Yeah. So we're all constantly chatting, and one of Carla's egg recipients, whose daughter's now 9 years old from Carla's egg, has reached out to me way before and said, "Shawnee, welcome to the family. We're all the community over here. Even though Eli's not biologically related to our kids, we're all the same family." So we've got people all over the show. Yeah, it's so nice. And Bree has donated to a couple in Perth, and they've had a little girl. So hey, got accommodation in Perth as well. Methods my man.
Would you Marilyn, and then we'll go Cheryl.
Hi, Marilyn. Shaun, I'm thrilled for you.
Thank you.
Shaun, what's been the uptake, if any, of other males coming to you or through your experience and wanting to know about how they become a father?
So there have been so many guys coming through. My surrogacy lawyer has been inundated with single men. She's like, I said to her, commissions, please. No, there's been so many through Instagram, Facebook. In the Australia, there's now a group of single gay guys that has developed on Facebook, a closed group for guys who are inspiring each other now. It's like it's gaining momentum. And can I just say, the guys in this community are such wonderful men. They're in touch with their feminine side as well. They want to be nurturers. Their values are really around family. And look, it's not an easy thing to do on your own. And now that I have experienced a little bit of fatherhood, 10 and a bit weeks, my advice to all those guys is the same. You've got to financially be stable. You cannot do this without having your finances in order. You have to have a community around you, whether it's your family or friends, and you do have to know that this is it's a hard journey. And the ones that are going to do it, and I can see a few who are really pushing, they'll be fine. And I think some of them will just have to, they'll be on the journey for a while. I'm not entirely sure it's their journey. Hopefully they'll get through, but it takes a lot of persistence. The Australian surrogacy is almost impossible, and most people don't even bother. My friends who've seen my journey have all opted to go overseas. So I've got quite a few friends who are on the process, in the journey now in Canada, Mexico, Argentina, and they're not doing it in Australia because they're like, hell no.
But haven't you paved the way? I mean, you've broken a mould by doing what you're doing and showing everyone that it's acceptable and doable.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it make it easier for more of men to do this?
Yes, 100% it will. And I've had many conversations with those guys because they're overwhelmed. I was very fortunate too that when I had no idea how to go about it, there's no handbook, maybe that's an idea. There's no handbook. So I found that when I joined the men's groups, there's Gay Dads Australia, Victoria Dads Australia, the majority of them being coupled people, and there's people who fostered, adopted, so it's an array of people. the generosity shown to me was incredible. Like, so many guys came out and said, Shaun, firstly, find your surrogate. Forget about doing this. Don't worry about the legals. Do that first. And so we have this camaraderie. It's quite amazing. Yeah.
Cheryl.
Mine's not really a question, it's a comment. We have a family member in Israel who reached 42, 43. She wasn't married, she had a partner, she wanted children. And she was actually introduced to a gay guy who wanted children. And he gave her a donation of sperm, and first time it worked. And apparently the legals of it were very, very straightforward and very simple, because it's done quite often there, from what I understand.
Yes.
It was not difficult at all. And then he shares 50-50 upbringing. He has the child. Then they went and had they had a girl. Then they went and had a little boy. And they're like a family. He has a partner now. Yeah. But it is just an amazing
that's
unit.
called co-parenting, and it is. And if you have a friend or someone that you've connected well with, those scenarios can be outstanding. If you have a falling out with that person, it's like being in a divorce couple, like it really is. So you hear there are some disaster stories that this has actually happened. Yeah, so I'm glad it's worked for them.
Well, I heard that she got quite jealous when he got his partner.
Yeah, because essentially it's the same, and the dynamics are weird. And there's I actually thought about co-parenting, and I did ask 3 girlfriends prior to the surrogacy journey whether they'd consider co-parenting, because they had similar values. One of them went and had fertility checkup, and it turned out that her AMH levels, so her egg reserves, were so low it just wasn't going to happen. And 2 of those girls actually opted out and said, look, you're awesome, we co-parent well, but we're not going to give up on love. And one of them's in a beautiful relationship, so that's great. So, I tried every avenue.
We always talk about needing a village to raise a child, and I know that for many women with maternal and child health centres, there are lots of mothers groups, there are lots of support groups. What's out there for men, and do you feel that there's a real vacuum? And do you believe that if there is a vacuum, that there's something that we could do about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is. So great question. We've gone to some of our maternal health nurses appointments so far. I've had about 4 or 5. And every time it's mentioned to us about the parents group, she keeps correcting herself. It's okay, Angela, we get where you're coming, we know, parents group. It's predominantly females, obviously. There is a dad's group, and they only meet up, was it, Shaun, is it once a month? Once a month, yeah. So there is it's not enough. It's not enough. We've been fortunate in the sense that Carla is 6 babies down, so she's given us.
Always she'd just pop out.
Yeah.
If she's 6 babies.
Yeah, 100%. So I think there's definitely, 100%.
It's funny with Michelle asking that. So obviously I'm going back to caring mums again, and we had this discussion in the office, and we really were trying to unpack what that would look like. What if a man like Shaun referred himself to our program? What would we do? I mean, it's something that we haven't been addressed with before, and I think it's 2022, and families look different, and parents look different, and I think we're really, as a community as well, moving forward on how we look at this situation, and that mums can be mums on their own, and dads can be dads on their own, and 2 dads. But family is built on one thing, it's built on love, and you can see that Shaun is beyond full of love. So unless anyone else had another question, I just want to again thank. We've got one more.
I was just going to say, what can we do as women to be able to promote male groups, daddy groups? How can we make it happen?
Well, I don't know. To me, it's just parents. It's not mummy groups and
Daddy groups.
Why can't we just focus on parents?
Parents and love. That's all it is.
That's actually a good point.
Yeah.
Mums
That's a
don't
great-
have a monopoly on parenting.
Yeah. And things are changing so much now. I've got quite a few clients that where the dads are the stay-home dads now, and mums are the ones going off to work. And there are some mums who realise that they weren't as maternal as they thought they were going to be, and now they are the ones who want to get out of the house, and the dads are home. But I actually quite like, just getting back to what you were saying. So your name is?
Yeah.
Gab. I actually like what Gab said. I feel like if we actually just had like a parents
parent group,
and
whatever.
anyone who's got
But to include you guys,
Yes,
you
to
know what I mean?
include-
Parents
yeah.
are parents.
Yeah. Although I will say this though, like women have their own like needs too though. I mean, women going through postnatal depression might want to sit in a room where they feel comfortable or in a group talking about what they're going through hormonally. They may not want to be with, I don't know.
We do know that 1 in 10 men now suffer with postnatal
Wow.
depression.
Yeah.
And that skin on skin for a man
Yeah.
is just as important to get those
Yeah.
feelings happening
Yeah.
as for a woman.
It's so important. We did that. We when Bubs was born, that skin on skin is just amazing, isn't it? And then he was on me for the first half hour or so, and then Shawnee and Carla actually opted to go last. I was quite happy for him to go on to Carla first because I just wanted to look after Carla.
Yeah.
Somebody's doing this for you, like you want to do the right thing by them all the way. And I feel like, just so you know, in Australia, a lot of these surrogacy journeys, they don't always end well, hey? So there have been stories of the parents who just go, thank you very much for your help, and off they go. And there's no real sharing photos or having that connection, and it's devastating to the surrogate. So yeah, we're very aware to make Carla feel like she has access to him anytime she wants.
Very lucky.
We're very lucky as well, yeah.
So I just want to say again, thank you for your generosity,
Thank you.
for your vulnerability, for the way you've shared with all of us tonight. I'm walking away. Who knows? Maybe I'll be something.
Watch out, you didn't want to say.
I feel like for 9 months, it's not happening. Poor Denver's sitting here, I'm not going anywhere. No, but really, all of the moving parts in this story are inspirational. The surrogate, the egg donor, Shaun and Shaun, thank you so much. We really were so grateful.
Can I say thanks to all of you?
That's for you, and you also get your National Council water bottle.
Oh.
I know, that's what you were really hoping for.
I'm here for that.
You also have some flowers. You'll see this magnificent home and unbelievable spread of food that has been very generously given to us by Jen.
Sorry, I looked at my ring and my diamond has fallen. If you wouldn't mind, when you go to your cars, just take it down.
I'm sorry about that.
I don't want to ruin it. No, sorry.
I'm going to grab a wet wrap. We've just got your, we've got a door prize.